Do you have one of these junk two-piece Ford lug nuts stuck on your car? Let's go ahead and get this thing off without damaging your wheel. Welcome everyone to the Derpzilla channel. Today, a super quick video dealing with those horrible OEM two-piece lug nuts found on many Fords, including my wife's 2019 Ford Mustang EcoBoost right here. And this is what the lug nut will typically look like, something like this. Not too bad, not too banged up. And if you take it to the dealership, like my wife did, have your wheels rotated around, and they decide they're just going to Hulk Hogan super blast your lug nuts back onto the car, you potentially could end up with lug nuts that look like this. Notice how it is significantly warped. Well, the negative part of having a warped lug nut like this, when it's on your wheel, like this one right here, is you can't get your 21mm socket, if you have a Mustang, onto the lug nut. It'll only partially grip. You'll try to get the lug nut off, and it will just spin and will not move, potentially stripping the lug nut even worse. Now, this video is kind of, if you haven't completely stripped the lug nut to like a a cylinder with no edges or anything like that on there, and so if you have it stuck on there, it's warped. You can't get the socket on, but it's not like a post at that point. Now, that's what happened to my wife's car here. I took her car to the dealership because I had hit a rock that was dropped by a truck on the road. It destroyed the front tire. I was going to put the spare on, and I could not get the damn lug nuts off of her car on the side of the road with limited tools. We had it towed to the dealership because we did have roadside for the tire. They took 2 days to get the wheel off to replace the freaking tire, and mangled the freaking wheel all to hell. Now, some of this is from the rock, but this is one of the lug nuts. They had 3 that were damaged. This is the damage it did to the freaking trying to get these lug nuts off. Notice all this damage to her wheel, getting these lug nuts off of her car. And I said, well, you just rotated all the tires. Everything was fine before that. Rotate the tires. So can you check all of the wheels? They said everything else was good, just that front wheel. That didn't sound right to me. So I wanted to get rid of these OEM lug nuts. Went with some Gorilla lug nuts, the ones that are keyed like this, with all 20 are keyed. So I was going to go ahead and replace those. And so far, I'm found 3 warped lug nuts. This is the 4th one. I've already replaced 3 of them. But I figured I'd make this real quick video to show you guys what you need to do to get these lug nuts off without damaging your wheel. I've already replaced multiple lug nuts here, 0 damage around. Now, some of this is just debris and stuff, but around like the dealership did, I don't know what they did, it took them 2 days. This takes like 2 minutes to do properly. First thing that will make this somewhat easy to do would be a 21mm 12-point socket, one of the thinner ones like this that can fit on the lug nut without banging on to the actual wheel. I'll have a link in the description for this. You're also going to want to have a hammer, just one right here. Probably good to have a breaker bar. You're going to want to have an impact of some sort, this 1/2-inch Hercules from Harbor Freight, and then a torque wrench, because when we put the new Gorilla lug nuts on there, you want to torque them to specs. The Mustang S550, I believe, is 150 foot-pounds is what I found for it, so I'm going to do 150 foot-pounds on that. And of course, if you have a Gorilla or something like that, or whatever, a keyed one, you're going to have your lug nut key. So we're going to go ahead and go over the steps you need to actually get this thing removed. I'll show you what it's doing, how to get this thing off. Now, this being a 12-point, it actually fits on a little bit easier than if you have a more standard style socket. But first thing you'll notice is when you try to put the socket on the lug nut, you can feel it wobbling around. It doesn't slide in all the way. And that's the first sign that this lug nut is swollen and is warped. And that's not correct. It shouldn't do this. And if you put the impact on here, which I did on the first one, it will just start spinning around and stripping this top layer in the front portion of your lug nut. It'll strip these little ridges right off your lug nut. So if you notice it wobbling, don't start trying to blast it off. Don't pull the dealership and just nuke it. So what you need to do is actually, you want to get it on there so you can't really spin it, but it feels like it's seated properly. And you're going to get your hammer and you're going to tap the lug nut carefully, nail it into place until it bottoms out onto the lug nut, and then we can get the breaker bar on there to help break it loose, because I think the dealership just went full power, no restriction on their impact, and just when they impacted these things on, they just warped the actual lug nut and they just blast them on there, full power, air, impact, whatever max setting is, not well over 150 foot-pound, because these things do not budge, even with a good impact. So I use the breaker bar to help just unseat it just enough. Then I get the impact on it and remove it the rest of the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing taken off. You can hear it bottom out. So that means it's fully seated onto that lug nut, pretty much hammered in place. Now I'm gonna get the breaker bar. We're gonna try to get a little bit, just loosen this thing up, because it is probably 200 foot-pound plus. Thankfully, no wheel studs are broken. And then we're gonna get this just loosen up enough, and we're gonna switch the impact. Here we are, lug nut came off. No damage. If you note, this little piece right here, this chip was already on there, but zero damage to the actual wheel from what I did. Now the rocks and stuff like that, that did its own thing. But you can see here, now the lug nut is quite embedded into the socket. So we're gonna take it over to my workbench, and we're gonna have to actually hammer this back out of the socket so we can use it for the next jacked up lug nut, which I'm sure I'll have at least one or two on the front wheel. Over at the workbench, and I found this 3/8 inch key here. And then what I'm gonna do is we're gonna clamp the socket into our clamp here, super tight. You know, make sure the lug nut has somewhere to drop. I'm gonna drop Allen wrench in here at the top, and we're gonna give it a little of the sweet sludge lovin'. Retrieved lug nut. Notice the top cap here is banged in pretty good by the Allen wrench, and notice the warped outer casing. These are two-part lug nuts, so the outer part bonded to an inner, so it's like a sleeve around an inner core. Sleeve gets warped probably by over utilizing a high-powered impact and just blasting them onto the wheel and just starting to twist them. Or they also, I heard, they just swell from age. I heard even 5 years, they start going bad. This is 2019, so I mean, really, you shouldn't, I mean, how bad can these lug nuts be if they're already failing within a few years? So yeah, that's this one. We'll go ahead and get the Gorilla on the car, and that's it. So if you have multiple ones like I do, you get to repeat this. Super easy. I mean, each one, if you're not filming, takes a minute. I mean, so a minute, zero damage to your wheel, and you can get these all off if you don't have any catastrophic failures of this. If you know, if the entire outer sleeve is completely ripped right off, then you're kind of screwed. You have to go to a little bit more intrusive technique, but thankfully we're not at that point. These are the Gorilla lug nuts, OEM spec for OEM wheels that I picked up for my wife's car. I think that's under 100 bucks. All 20 lug nuts are keyed, and they provide you a key with a code, a serial number code. So every box of these is slightly key different. So your key will only work for your Gorilla lug nuts and for only your specific set. And if you lose your key, make sure you retain the serial number information so you can actually get a replacement, or you know, order a replacement before you lose it so you have one as a backup spare. Anyways, so far these quality, I've had Gorilla on a lot of my cars. These things are great. They have a couple different versions. You have the one key per wheel within OEM's, you know, non-keyed lug nuts for the other 4 lug nuts per wheel, or you can get no key. So, you know, cost, of course, goes up from no key to everyone keyed. I'll put links in the description for all of them in the video description. Just make sure you check that out. But anyways, no wheel stud was damaged, and we would spin this bad boy on. And I have the key here. It's a little bit harder to put these lug nuts on because you have to just feel it around until it slots in like that. And then I have my impact with the 22 millimeter, because the Gorillas do use a 22 millimeter instead of the OEM 21 millimeter. That'll fit on the inside socket connection right here. And then I have my impact set to a medium setting, so it won't actually impact it more than I think 130 foot-pound. And so I can zip these on or off. Oh, here we go. Okay, so it's already good. Already impacted on there. And then I'm going to switch over to my torque wrench with the key. Once again. $150 Good to go. All new Gorilla lug nuts on this wheel. I just removed my 4th jacked up OEM lug nut. That pretty much wraps up this relatively quick video on how to get rid of these super junk OEM Ford lug nuts. I'm not sure on what all cars these pieces of crap come on. I know my wife's Mustang, they come on, I believe F-150s, and maybe all of their cars that are not like the super high-end ones, or maybe even all of them, I'm not sure. But this should hopefully let you get these lug nuts off without damaging your wheel, without breaking anything, having to go to the dealership and let them break more stuff. If you guys like the video, feel free to subscribe, like, share, comment, all that fun stuff. Check out my merch shop, zilla.com/shop. It's z1lla.com/shop. You can get merchandise like the Z1 hat, some Mustang related stuff, car stuff, humor, satire, all that fun stuff. I have the NBA TX shirts, other cool things. Also on my Etsy store, which is zilla.com.etsy.com. So z1lla.com.etsy.com. Links should be floating above my head somewhere, maybe over here. And I'll also have them in my video description. So as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Peace.